Welcome back to Foundation. I'm Lord Bara. And if you hadn't guessed already, yes, today the fair is coming to town. So, I've been a little bit naughty. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I know, I said I wouldn't do it, but I have added mods into the game because I just need more stuff in my life. I don't know what else to say, really. Look, it'll be worth it. We're going to build a fair, and it's going to be epic. But in case you didn't know, there is a mod. It's called Medieval Fair, made by the modder that goes by the name of Raisin Muffin. So credit to Raisin Muffin. And it's going to have all of the assets that you see me place down, plus a whole load more that I don't even use, included in it completely for free, which is just incredible, and it's created by the community that play Foundation. I just love them for it. So you'll see me taking from the Medieval Fair, plus a bunch of other mods a little bit later on. But in a nutshell, it effectively functions just like a regular monument, except it's completely free. You don't have to pay any in-game currency or anything for it, and it gives you loads of beautification, which is nice. It's a little bit cheaty, but it does break the mechanics of the game a little bit, but it's fine. It's set dressing, and I can live with it. While that's going on, let me tell you about the day the fair came to town. The sky blazed brilliant streaks of red as dawn broke over Bara town, the kind of morning that hinted at a lively day ahead. From my vantage point in the manor square, I could see the village stirring below, the faint sounds of the town gate creaking open, down past Ironside district. There in the shadow of the rising sun, Wilfroy stood with the other guards, their faces still softened by sleep. They were checking a caravan at the captain's command with a sense of duty, though their excitement was hard to hide. Travellers, in all shapes and sizes, were a riot of colour. Their wagons festooned with banners of red, gold and green. The guards exchanged glances, hesitant at first, before Wilfroy, the guards man, waved them on, with an air of authority. One by one, the carts began to roll through, the clatter of hooves and creaking wood filling the quiet streets of Bara as the colourful troop passed beneath the gate. A tumbler tumbled, an effortless leap from the cart, much to Wilfroy's wide-eyed delight. A woman balanced a lute on her hip, plucking a playful tune as she glanced towards the dew-steeped houses. Helicina, emerging from the tavern with a look of indifference, her fingers drummed a steady rhythm against her apron, no doubt tallying the day's coin. Even she couldn't help glance towards the wagons as they trundled past. The horses pulled their heavy loads up towards the field near the manor entrance where, at last, the travellers began to set up camp. Tents were pulled from carts, poles hammered into the ground, and the air filled with the steady work of preparation. The village children, unable to resist any longer, tiptoed forwards, eagerly weaving through the half-assembled tents, eyes wide with wonder as they peered into crates and touched the fabric of the banners that flapped in the morning breeze. The fair would last a week. Its allure impossible to resist. There would be songs and games, fortune-telling and feats of strength, yet the true stories would unfold in whispers and mischief. The early morning light kissed the tops of the tents, turning the edges of the banners to gold, and even the villagers, looking on in fascination, unable to deny the pull of the promise of the fair. For how often does the world come to Bara's doorstep, bringing with it mystery and delight? Ladies and gentlemen, children and friends of the wild. His voice carried effortlessly over the chatter, each syllable landing like a showman's promise. Tonight, you are in for a sight unlike any you have ever seen. A dance with fire itself. But mind your woolen clothes, for the flames have a mind of their own." He winked, causing a ripple of chuckles from the audience. Among them stood the Rivenshire family, sheep farmers from the outskirts of Bara, their simple woolen cloaks pulled tight against the evening chill. They had come to see the spectacle, fire jugglers and acrobats whose feats promised to dazzle the inhabitants of Bara. Young Elric, their eldest son, stood wide-eyed, holding little Ina's hand tightly as she squirmed with excitement at the sight of the torches being lit. Even old man Rivenshire, stooped with the years of herding, couldn't help but let a smile break through as the performers began. At the centre of it all was the fair master, a man as round as he was short, his belly shaking with every hearty laugh, his beard bushy and dark with a single streak of grey running like a line of ash from his lip to his chin, which gave him an air of wisdom on top of his jolly manner. His arms waved dramatically as he spoke, drawing the crowd in with every word. Little Ina pulled on her brother's sleeve to point out the showman's fingernails, thick, yellowed and ridged like old rotten wood, though they moved gracefully despite their appearance. Clapping and snapping in time with the rhythm of the performers behind him, the sheep herders huddled closer together as the first jugglers stepped forward. As they began to toss their batons into the air, the showman moved towards Old Man Rivenshire and gave him a knowing nod, as if the two shared a little secret. And as the flames danced higher, the entire town of Bara seemed to hold its breath, caught up in the magic of the evening. Eventually, the fair spilled out into every corner of Bara town, its colourful chaos seeping into the once quiet tavern. The usual crowd of farmers and labourers were joined by a different sort tonight, travellers with exotic accents, performers draped in brightly coloured silks, and maidens with knowing smiles who moved through the crowd like a warm breeze. Grezmere, as was his habit, stood behind the bar at first, filling mugs and sharing a joke with the regulars, but it wasn't long before three young women, each more beautifully adorned than the last, gathered around him, giggling and tossing flirtatious glances. Their dresses were unlike anything the townsfolk had seen before, draped in shimmering fabrics that caught the dim light of the tavern's hearth. They moved with a kind of practiced grace, their eyes bright with mischief as they plucked flowers from their baskets they carried. "Such strong hands," one remarked, lightly brushing her fingers against Grezmere's broad palm. "Surely you're no ordinary tavern keeper, perhaps a hero in disguise?" Another, perhaps a sister, with dark, glinting eyes, was appraising the simple chain around Grezmere's neck, her fingers lingering over the links. "And look at this, a man with good taste, too. A gift from a lover, perhaps?" The third maiden, who stood behind the other two, smiled coyly and pressed a flower, its petals deep crimson, into Grezmere's hand. "For you, handsome sir, a token of our appreciation for your fine hospitality." She let her gaze drift past him, taking in the glint of the silver ring on a patron's finger, her eyes narrowing with interest. Grezmere chuckled, his face flushed from the attention. Even he was struggling to keep up with their playful remarks. Now you flatter me too much," he said, his usual good-natured grin spreading wider. "I'm just a humble barkeep, though if I'd known you were coming, I might have combed my hair." The three girls erupted into giggles, their laughter blending in with the clink of mugs and the chatter filling the rafters. The room had come alive, the travellers casting their allure over everyone they encountered. Meanwhile, across the room, Helicina stood, her lips pressed into a tight line. She had seen the entire exchange, of course, her sharp eyes catching every coy smile and every flirtatious touch, but the tavern was busier than ever, and she had more pressing matters to attend to, mugs to refill, patrons to attend to, and her temper to control. Cloaked in a shadow that seemed to emerge from nowhere, away from the excitement and colour of the fair, a dusky coloured tent stood apart. Its midnight blue fabric, trimmed with golden loops, was pitched alone, far from the lively music and laughter that filled the camp. Whispers floated around Bara town about what lay inside, for those who entered would exit with answers to questions often best left unasked. I saw an old farmer's wife was the first to step out one evening. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but not of sorrow. Her clutched chest as though her heart might burst, her voice breaking as she called out her late husband's name. She sobbed almost with joy, half laughing and half crying as she stumbled away from the tent, whispering words of love to the long gone. I was told that the daughter of the baker's family emerged, much younger but no less transformed. She pushed aside the heavy velvet curtain with a sly smile that seemed too knowing for her age. There was a lightness in her step, as though she had been granted some secret, some truth that eluded others. Her eyes sparkled, and as she rejoined the crowds, she cast a glance back at the tent, almost as if it had whispered something sweet into her ear. Then, the velvet curtain swayed once more as a single figure approached. Battestina. She stood for a moment in front of the entrance, the flickering light from the torches casting long shadows on the ground. In her hand, she had a single silver coin, rolling it between her fingers as if weighing the future. Her gaze lingered on the strange tent, her expression unreadable. But there was a curiosity in her eyes, and without hesitation, she stepped forward, pushing the curtain aside and disappearing into the dim interior. That evening played on cheerfully, but when Battestina finally emerged, the lively fair seemed worlds away. Her face, once alight with the sparkle of the evening, was now pale and streaked with tears. Her breath came in short, choked gasps, and her shoulders shook as if some weight had crushed her heart. The coin that had passed so confidently between her fingers earlier was gone, but something far heavier seemed to hang over her. She did not linger. With a muffled sob, she turned from the tent and fled, running not towards the warm lights and sounds of the fair, but away from them, towards the quiet, shadowed streets of Bara town. The flickering torchlight barely caught the edges of her retreating figure as she vanished into the night, swallowed by the darkness and the solitude of her seeming heartbreak. And so, the week passed like this, with laughter and tears, until eventually the fair had ended. The once vibrant tents and colourful wagons were being packed up with swift precision. Performers and merchants, their faces no longer adorned with the lively grins of the past days, now worked with tired, practised hands. One by one, the carts were loaded, banners pulled up, and the mysterious travellers began to fade as quickly as they had appeared. The excitement of the fair faded with the rumbling of the travellers' wagons, disappearing through the gates like a dream fading from memory. On the morning of their leaving, at the market stalls, I saw two sheep farmers in a heated argument. "I'm telling you, 2 are gone, vanished," one shouted, pointing a finger towards the empty field where his flock had grazed. "Oh, and you thinking it was my doing?" another replied, with a shake of his head, casting a wary glance at the departing wagons. Across the square, Grezmir found himself surrounded by angry patrons outside the prancing boar. "My ring's gone! Disappeared 2 nights past in there!" One man growled. His fists were clenched. "And my brooch," a woman added, equally frustrated. Grezmir, trying to calm the growing mob, raised his hands, about to speak, but his voice faltered as he instinctively reached for the chain around his neck. His heart sank as he realized it too was gone. As the last of the wagons trundled through the town gate, Wilfroy gleefully waving them goodbye, there was a collective sigh from the villagers. Life in Bara would return to its usual pace. Yet a faint wistfulness along with the lingering questions, like, where was Battestina? No one had seen or heard of her since that night. Among the villagers, a mixture of relief and sadness hung in the air. Children watched with longing eyes, clutched wooden toys and trinkets they'd begged for earlier in the week, while the older folk muttered quietly about the disruption the magic of the fair was leaving, taking with it the brief adventure it had brought. That was a nice change of pace for Bara Town. I hope you enjoyed that. Although I am slightly concerned about Batastina, perhaps I should look into that. But for now, if you have been, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. This has been Foundation, and I've been Lord Bara.